Hey fellas, after some consideration, I have decided to address the PlayStation Showcase that streamed earlier today. Not quite as good as the similar one I had this time last year, but there's still a fair amount of stuff we're talking about, so let's begin. Okay, so the presentation led off with Haven Studios' Fair Games, which is going to be something like a cooperative shooter, which similar to the Payday series, being the inaugural title from the new studio of Jade Raymond and Illume, whom that has worked on everything from Assassin's Creed to Uncharted, and we'll come back to these in a bit. And of course, Jim Ryan's presiding presentation. So let's continue. I also will note that unless otherwise stated, most of these games are going to be coming out later this year. Or even they don't have. I will really point out exactly when I had them. But first off, we have just for later this year, Arrowhead's Helldivers 2, a cooperative shooter, which I did not play the first one, but apparently a lot of people have, and it looks interesting. Initially, between the militaristic vibe and the insects they're fighting, I initially thought it was going to be the Starship Troopers game, which looked interesting as well. Especially like the film, especially the first one that Verhoeven did. So I'll definitely keep an eye on this one. So let's get going. On July the 20th, we have Ascendant Studios' Immortals of Avium. A I am not certain what to expect from this one. It didn't really stand out at me that much, but the next one definitely did. I would say it's one of my highlights of this event. Okay, next up we have Ghost Runners 2, a sort of cyberpunk themed first person platformer. And as someone who enjoyed the first title, I don't know, I definitely will be eager to see how this one does as well. And keep in mind, some titles will be going into more detail than others. Hers as I actually had to rewatch the stream more than once, especially to get all the details I needed. So I had to leave in the middle of it to go do an errand real quick, so let's continue. Okay. S Game Studios Phantom Blade Zero. I'm not certain what to think of this one, but as someone who has enjoyed other titles that have presented a kind of revisionist take on this mythology, such as Ghost of Tsushima, the Neo games, and Sekiro, obviously. I'm actually kind of surprised you didn't get anything from FromSoft or Sucker Punch in this presentation, but that being the case, I may keep an eye on this one. I don't know how to. I need more information on some of these titles, just as a fair warning. Giant Squid presents Sword of the Sea. Given how this is the same developer who's worked on similar art games as Obzu and Journey, this looks promising, I would say. I will definitely be keeping this on my radar, especially when I actually do get a console. I mean, no release date beyond 2023 yet, which is also a something shared by the next game I'll be addressing in this presentation. The Talos Principle 2. I have not played the first one, so another one I'll have to look into because otherwise I'm not sure I'm going to understand what the sequel is going to be doing, which is actually much more clear than another title I'll be addressing later on in this video, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, we've got the first of a few titles that's not coming out until 2024, as well as the next run up. Neva, apologies for pronunciation, has an interesting look and feel towards it. Especially, but I definitely say that this initial reveal is quite beautiful, and I definitely hope that this game turns out well, all things considered, as well as the next one. Okay, we have next up Up we have Cat Quest, also coming in 2024. So this looks very like a very cute game, I would say. Especially, I mean, it's basically a solid mix of both indie titles and bigger experiences in this presentation. And though I'm not sure what to think of this next one I'm going to be addressing either. Okay, so from Square Enix, which is the first title I have in presentation, it still makes me wonder what's going on in there right now. Foam Stars. People claim this is basically like their Splatoon. I'm not really seeing that. What I am seeing is a battle royale where they're spreading the area in foam with everything from power washers to champagne chain guns. No, I'm not making this up. And on top of that, I noticed a noticeable difference in between the pre-rendered cinematic and the early gameplay footage. I mean, anything can happen from here, but I thought about games being made like this when I was younger, but my idea had the characters depicted a bit younger than they were in this. This one doesn't even have a release date at all yet. That's so. And just for this as well, I would say, because it's not the only thing they have in this presentation, it makes me wonder what they're doing. Another pleasant surprise is Plucky Squire. So, it's another her kind of platformer, and definitely going to harken back to an early era of such a titles. Ones like the Rocket Knight series, aka Sparkstar for those across the pond. You have ones like, say, like Y-Star or Dynamite Heady. Well, I kind of like how even with the processing power giving us nearly unparalleled realism, that some games aren't afraid to be a bit more stylish, though I'll admit sometimes work better than others. Teardown. This title is coming to PS5 after having become something of a phenomenon on PC, and I think could be enjoyable there as well. Like, the destruction physics are definitely the main selling point, and I can really tell. Maybe I will definitely see how it fares on console, given how I have not known that many people have played it, but the ones I have seen from it seem to have enjoyed it, so there's that. This one is probably going to surprise a few people. I did not think that this needed to happen. I was not among those people who actually were waiting for it, but apparently it is actually happening. A remake of the much loved Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater. I am skeptical, but we shall see how it goes. However, I will say that the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection sounds good. No objections to HD re-release of the first three games. I say this because Snake Eater is my second favorite PS2 game ever, and open and content with just the collection and not full-on remake. Especially given the situation between Kojima and Konami, which makes me a lot more gives me a lot more trepidations towards it than others, since I'm very much on Team Kojima in this situation. Okay. So, so now, trying to redirect myself, next year has a next title coming out. This is Towers of Agazba. Apologies in advance for the pronunciation once again. And this definitely is not leaving much an impression on me. Though I have much more to say about the next title shown off, which is going to be the next one from Square Enix on this list. Final Fantasy XVI, June 22nd. I don't know why, but so far, nothing I've seen in the 3 years since it was initially revealed alongside the PS5 itself has actually managed to sell me on it. And at this point, I don't think anything's going to, unless the game itself actually is as good as they're claiming it could be. Just everything from like the visual presentation to the tone to like the approach to the combat it's not really doing it for me. I mean, makes sense. And especially not really being on board with a lot of the comments that Yoshida's been making. And a lot of directions seems like he's really just taking this too personally. I mean, I think I kind of prefer at this stage of my life the more upbeat, offbeat, and fun ideas that Nomura would have did with 15, FF7R, and the Kingdom Hearts series. I mean, even though Kingdom Hearts 4 is also going in a more quote unquote realistic direction, I can still tell that Nomura's fingerprints are on that one. And so I guess we'll see. I mean, they claim it's gonna be like their Game of Thrones. Hopefully, it won't be like the infamous last seasons of it. Immediately following that, we have Alan Wake 2 coming out October 17th. Now we're talking the long-awaited sequel to Remedy's his horror-themed detective story is finally seeing release, and I'm glad that both the noirish horror style is being retained, and between the first game, Control, and the Max Payne trilogy, their developer I really like, and I honestly hope they manage to bring their A game with this one as well. I'm just gonna brush right past some of these ones before I get into the next game, like Assassin's Creed Mirage. Don't really care, even though it's coming out October 12th. Revenant Hill, curious, kind of reminds me of Night in the Woods. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink coming in the winter time. Yeah. Okay, so next up, Street Fighter 6, June 2nd. I don't know what to expect from the My Story trailer they're coming out with. Among other aspects, next including some new characters, Mad Gear in many respects is back. DJ is now an actual disc jockey. But in terms of the big fighting game releases, especially on that system this year, I'm more interested in Mortal Kombat's reboot or Tekken 8 as well. I mean, I'm gonna wait to see what other people think first for this one, and especially since some of the perks they're offering for pre-orders will likely be released as DLC later. This is like most likely as first dibs, given how a lot of stuff's already in game's code. So let's continue. Okay, so next up is Ultros, also coming in 2024, which definitely gives off like an Ori vibe, albeit instead of a more subdued fantasy realm, definitely has this kind of vibe looking like of op art from the from India. I mean, which I think looks promising. I had to look into this title, and which definitely should give some perspective on the next two titles I'm talking about. Okay, so we've got Towers of Fantasy. Not really a whole lot of information in this one, but there are a lot of mechs as well as very cutesy ladies. Do I simply say, okay? It doesn't really tell me a whole lot. I mean, it reminds me a bit of Genshin Impact, a title I don't really play and do not plan to. So this one's not going to stand out to me either. I mean, Dragon's Dogma 2. I know the series have fans, but since I did not play the first one, this is going to be another brief mention. And before I segue into the VR titles, but Final Fantasy Help Wanted 2 coming out later this year is in time for the movie adaptation, which I understand the appeal at least, even though I typically don't play the more kiddie kind of horror games, but there are ones in this presentation, including one I'll be talking about in the VR section, that I do play. Even though it is still somewhat disappointing that, at least at launch, that the PSVR 2 is not going to be compatible with PSVR titles from the last generation. But the Resident Evil 4 remake will be getting a VR update, much like the original game, that was freaky in VR. I think this one should be too. And I think that, even though I was skeptical about that remake as well, that did impress me, so no pressure, Konami, on Snake Eater, just a reminder. Arizona Sunshine 2 later this year. I never played the first, but I'll keep an eye on this one. Smilegate Entertainment's Crossfire Sierra Squad. I'm keeping my expectations low for this one, given how Crossfire X was one of these titles of last year, and they already shut that one down. Oh, I mean, Andream's Synapse coming out for July has potential, and out now is Beat Saber with Queen DLC, and I'd say maybe PSRE 2 you make the rock and roll go around. Okay, another one that was kind of out of left field was a revival of Bungie's Marathon, which will be later this year. I mean, basically, now that they're officially part of Sony's umbrella, I mean, given how they are. I mean, it's apparently going to be an extraction-based shooter, but given that it's a title that Bungie made before they made Destiny and before they made the first 3 Halo games, I think it's definitely worth keeping an eye on. Speaking of Destiny, we get an early reveal for Destiny 2 The Final Shape, which after nearly a full decade of expansions to the series, it's going to be the last part, with more info coming on August 22nd. Not a lot to say here. I mentioned before that I was not really sold on the story component of the Lightfall expansion, but at least some of the gameplay and loot have been interesting. I finally upgraded my Guardian, so I'll be able to go into my next attempt at content without getting completely steamrolled. I mean, with better weapons, now I got better weapons and gear equipped finally. So maybe there'll be a third game, maybe they won't, we'll see. Okay, another quick fire off before we get to my personal highlight of the presentation. And if you've been watching Mail Off, you probably know which one it is Firewalk Games Concord, the last title coming out next year, and an update on this August Gran Turismo movie, which is definitely an extended version the same trailer had. I'm kind of low-key interested in that one, given how I was hoping they would do, focus on the realism of the games in the context of how graduating from racing on a digital track to a real one. And I mean, even though the Uncharted movie wasn't the best one ever, it did make some money at least. So of course I'm going to keep doing that. And Blomkamp's director I've liked for a long time, and of course David Harbour in the cast always a win for me, bringing grander relatability to even the most absurd idea. And while I'm on absurd ideas, the rumors were true about that accessory. So it's not going to be like a full-on Beta 2, but rather it's going to be Project Q, a streaming device. It's going to be handheld, which can play your library on it. Interesting, Jim. Your words say your rivals haven't grown over the last 5 years, but your accessories say they have and you want a piece of that market. How typical. We close out this stream with my personal highlight, Marvel Spider-Man 2, the sequel to the hit video game, which not only sees both Peter as well as Miles Morales return from the spin-off, but also the Black Suit Spider-Man. Venom's going to be the main villain, but also we're going to get the Lizard and Kraven the Hunter. I'm liking what I'm seeing of the combat, and also switching between different heroes as well. It's like a simpler version of the main leads Age of Grand 5 as well. So, except for Insomniac are big fans of the series. My favorite superhero too, and they're definitely great at making games even after all these years, being part of PlayStation family for a long time. Anyway, all I got to say for now. I will see you Friday when I look upon you, and I will see you all again very soon, so take care everyone.